Hello, welcome back. So glad to see we haven't lost too many people during the break. I'm sure everybody will be piling back on now. Yep, I can see the stream numbers going up. So people are coming back, which is good. So we're going to move into our next speaker. We've got Pablo Acosta, who is at Prescient Devices. He's going to be talking to us about the contributing. I'll try to remember now. Contributing nodes to the ecosystem. Basically, this the there we go. Contributed nodes ecosystem. So we got it there. Over the title. So I'm quite looking forward to this one. Definitely because it's some stuff I've been looking at. End of last year, beginning of this year was the Node-RED ecosystem. I think it's one of the most valuable things about Node-RED, but it's definitely something which we can give a bit more love and a bit more attention to. So without more, over to you, Pablo.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. So I will be talking about the state of the Node-RED ecosystems and giving some observations, data, and suggestions about that. So I'm Pablo Acosta, as I mentioned. I'm the VP of Engineering at Prescient. And at Prescient, we build a edge-to-cloud data system on top of Node-RED. And we use that to deliver real-time operational business insights. So if you or your company have any data ops, or distributed IoT systems, feel free to reach out. My LinkedIn information is there, and we're happy to see if we can help you. But our system is based on Node-RED, and that's where sort of my bias is coming from and why I'm interested in this. So the motivation for this talk is the following: either you or I, or one of our customers, when you are developing a flow, say, hey, does Node-RED do X? And so you do one of two things. Sam has done this quite a few times in this morning. You either go to the flow page in the Node-RED website, or you go to the palette manager and search for X. And more often than not, you'll find that there are many results, right? One or many nodes that purportedly do X. So it's like, awesome. But are they any good? Will they crash your Node-RED? Who knows? That's kind of the motivation, and that's what prompted me to start looking at this. So let me give you a lay of the land. I think Nick earlier today alluded to this. As of late September, when I crawled all this data, there are more than 4,000 packages in contributed nodes. And out of those, 350 are scoped. And this is by no means perfect, but that gives you some sense of which ones are supported by, which ones are corporate. This is not perfect. Obviously there are individuals that, like, anyone can create a scope package, and certainly there are some nodes that are supported or developed by corporate entities that are not scoped. But roughly, you're talking about hundreds of packages that are supported by corporations. So the rest are community packages. And really cool to see that there are almost 2,500 authors, at least listed in the as authors in the packages. So that's a quite sizable community there. And there are packages being submitted every day, and the oldest, at least based on GitHub commits, are 2014. But I'm sure there are older packages than that. So let me give you a lay of the land, set the stage of where all those nodes are. You can find nodes for. And you can see in the word cloud, this is just looking at tags that authors have used for their nodes. All sorts of applications, which is great, which is one of the strengths of Node-RED, is that it has nodes for pretty much anything. And in the histogram, you see that kind of how many nodes have used a particular tag. And then I took a crack at putting those tags into broad categories so that we can see where you can expect to find nodes and what are the strengths of Node-RED. Given how Node-RED started, it's not surprising to see the IoT has about a quarter of the nodes. Any cloud infrastructure takes a huge part of the Node ecosystem. 2, home and industrial automation follow. Comms, any communication node like MQTT, BACnet, Modbus is also well represented, and then smaller categories. And by the way, the UI category there is almost exclusively the dashboard. So part of the things that I noticed while looking at the tags is that it would be nice to be able to see all the keywords so that there's no repetition or no, sorry, not repetition, but calling essentially the same thing by different tags. And it would be nice to sort of have a committed effort to clean up the keywords in the and tags in the nodes. And it also would be kind of nice to be able to search by keyword in the palette manager. But so this is kind of where you can expect to find nodes. So one way to measure quality, and Nick talked about this earlier today, is a report card or the scorecard. And this is an awesome initiative that was started, I believe, in January or early this year. And so it's only covering, as Nick mentioned, new nodes and nodes that receive an update. So that's why only about 20% of the nodes have a scorecard. But if you look at all the nodes that do have a scorecard, only 8% of those have a perfect scorecard, meaning that they comply with all the categories. And I think actually it's kind of funny. Nick also showed a chart like this, or the histogram of plotting how many nodes comply with each category. And you see the laggards are the examples, and the Node-RED and Node.js version. Now the bottom two, complying with this is just a kind of a 2-line change in the package.json file. This is a little bit more than in the sense of just making sure that it actually works with whatever minimum version you have. And then the examples is actually the other one that seems to be the most difficult to comply with. All the other ones are much, much higher, right? So so that's an interesting observation, that the examples, which by the way, it's kind of key also for people that are new to Node-RED or want to find a deeper understanding of how to use the node. I think it's really interesting that it's one of the laggards. So having said that, this is, I think I consider this it's newish initiative, and I would say this is a baseline, but it's not obviously this is not the only thing that you might want to consider when you're trying to see if a node is good or not. That one is an obvious one. It's the version number. So if you look at all the packages, more than half are in version 0, between 0 and 1.0. And then the rest is 1.0 and higher. Now, I don't. If you traditionally version 1 is considered, hey, this is ready for production, it will be stable. There are not going to be any breaking changes. You can use it. I don't think that's representative of the stage of those in those 2,000 nodes that are in version 0 or between 0 and 1. There's many that are being used in production, and they're ready for production and stable and usable. So I think this is more a call to action. I think the version number of a lot of packages do not reflect the reality of the usage, the stability, and the worthiness of the package. So this is more like a call to action to the node authors to take a second look at what the node version is and update it if it's called for. Particularly coming from I see a lot of our customers. That's sometimes the first thing that they give them pause, like, oh, this is not version 1.0, and nothing to do with the quality. As I said, there's nodes that we use every day and we rely on every day that less than 1.0, and so this is more of a suggestion. It's like, if you're a node author and your package is not version 1.0, take a second look and really evaluate whether it's appropriate to bump up the version. Another metric that you can think of is popularity. So there's almost 500,000 downloads, weekly downloads of nodes. And you can see here the top 10. Kudos to the Node-RED dashboard. It completely dwarfs the downloads of anything else. But again, to the theme of the versions, you can see 5 out of the top 10 are are in the 0 point something version. So, but here you also see that if you look at the first quartile in terms of download, meaning 25% of the downloads are represented by 13 packages. So, said another way, 13 packages account for 25% of the downloads. Then the next 25% is 42 packages. The next 25% is 180 packages. So 75% of all the downloads are roughly 200 packages. So in a way, increasing the quality of the packages, it's not a 4,000 package problem. It's mostly a 100th package problem, because you can see that then on the 3,800 packages only account for 25% of the downloads. Now, of course, having a long tail packages is beneficial, because if you're trying to do something that's niche, or it's not I don't know, MQTT, but it's really important to you, it's really great that Node-RED has a package for that. But in terms of the overall quality, it's not like you have to work on thousands of packages. Maybe we can, as a community, we can focus on at least from a popularity perspective, on hundreds of packages. Another measure of quality that you can think of is the ratings. If you go to the Node page in the Node-RED website, you'll see this actions box. And by the way, if you don't see it, just turn on the features, the functionality cookies, and you will see this action box. So you can rate the package, and you can see here too, and it offers you what's the rating and how many people have voted. And here you see the top 10 packages. They're all 5-star rating, but I sorted them by number of votes. And again, here in a recurring theme, 5 out of the top 10 are in version less than 1.0. So about 1,500 packages have been rated, and there have been 3,700 votes. And it's good to see that out of those votes, most are 5 and 4-star. But here's a call to action too, and I'm speaking also to myself. If you use a node, regardless of version, regardless of popularity, if you use a node, it's stable, it does what it says in the tin, you have no problems with it, you're happy with it, take a few minutes and just rate them. It will greatly help, I think, all of us, the community, to ascertain whether it's okay to use a package. Lastly, another measure of quality, if you think about it, is whether the package is actively maintained or not. And I'll make the proviso that some packages are feature complete and they don't have any bugs, and so they might not receive updates or anything else, and that's fine too. But I think for the most part, software always evolves, and bugs are fixed. So here I'm showing 3 plots. The top one is the week since the last update, and number of packages that are within that week. The second one is what's the age of the oldest PR that's open, and the last one is what's the age of the oldest issue that's open. So about a third of the packages have been updated in the last year, a somewhat arbitrary timeline, but that's the number. And then you see the number of packages that have PRs and issues. I was sort of comforted in the sense that a lot of people seem to have the skill, the bandwidth, and the inclination to submit PRs, but even more people have, at least if they don't have any of those, or for whatever reason they cannot submit a PR, at least they also tell authors, node authors, about issues or suggestions of their packages. So if you adopt a certain criteria and say, okay, accounting for the version issues that I've mentioned, if you say, okay, what packages have version greater than or equal than 0.6 that are 4 or 5 stars, that are within the 50% of most downloaded and been latent last year. Drum roll, Node-RED, Node-Email is the one that satisfies that criteria, the only one. And then if you increase the popularity a little bit to say, okay, it's one of those hundreds of packages that are in the top 75% of downloaded popularity, there's a few more. So it's my hope that, if we revisit this next year or in whatever given time frame, that more and more packages will be able to be in this list. And this is, of course, an arbitrary criteria, and there's software quality. It's quite an interesting topic. There's lots of things you can look at, but I urge me and everybody in the community to put yourselves in the shoes of users and say, okay, what do they look at, and try to make those metrics reflect reality. So finally, it's a call to action that us as a community to put an effort into measuring and improving quality together. Some of the suggestions, like thinking about this, is like the report guide. I think it's a great framework to, and it's a very easy snapshot of the quality. So two things I thought of that could be interesting to see is, whether the node has a test bench, meaning like if you run npm test, does anything happen? I mean, and of course you say, okay, well, yeah, something can happen, but can run a test bench. What is that? What is that test bench measuring? Fair point, but at least the author has put together a test bench, and also. It's been my experience and some of our customers' experiences that you use a node and either it crashes Node-RED, crashes Node.js, or something really bad happens. Is at least if there are examples, which is one of the criteria of this scorecard, is there a way to run them, automatically, see if at least that works. And on the point of examples, if you're a node author, I'm sure when you're developing the node, you have some kind of flow to test the node functionality. Consider that, making that the example, and that would increase the one of those criteria in the scorecard that's one of the lowest. And the last one, the two last one is, again, consider whether the version number of the node reflects the reality of the popularity, usage, and stability of the node. And if it's less than 1.0, consider maybe bumping up the version number. And the last one is, as mentioned before, take a minute and rate the nodes that you use every day and that you rely on every day. I think that will be a huge help. And finally, I mean, the XKCD classic cartoon here is that, as Nick pointed out, I think one of the strengths on Node-RED is the community. But let's make sure that, speaking as a commercial enterprise, that we support the people that do this, for free, like open source contributors, by either submitting PRs, issues, or in any other way, so that the community still stays vibrant. And that chart that Nick showed in the morning, where the nodes, the contributed nodes keeps increasing, continues to do so that Node-RED can find its way into even more applications than it does now. So I will a web-friendly version of this talk will be, it's live now in the URL that you see here. The QR code will get you there. We are committed to periodically update the data that you've seen, and if you want to see any other metric of the Node-RED node ecosystem, let me know. We're always happy to consider that, and meaning that it's my intention to make this webpage, the State of Node-RED, is sort of a living page where it gets constantly updated, and one can take a quick snapshot at what the state is. And with that, I will hand it off to Sam, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Hey, thank you, Pablo. Yeah, that's really awesome. Actually, that's been really good. I probably should give you the background. So I was the one that kind of created the scorecard stuff at the end of last year. So I say, yeah, that was a project I worked on with Nick, but and it was really difficult. We're trying to do it programmatically because we're an open source project. We don't have the time to. We're not Apple. We're not going to have rooms of people reviewing every single submission. So it was partly the challenge of what can you automate and to look at. So scorecard is by no means a perfect thing. It was, and also it was trying to. It's very hard to not when something as diverse as Node-RED to not kind of. It's very hard to say what a good node looks like necessarily because they can do so many different things, and even sometimes just some of the best nodes are some of the simplest nodes. There's a couple of sort of Q node and things out there that doesn't have any external dependencies, doesn't do doesn't change, doesn't need updating. But yeah, so the when was it last updated was one I really agonized over as to does this actually tell you it's a is that a mark of quality that it's recently updated or not.
And for as I said, as I mentioned, I talked like if it's feature complete, doesn't have any bugs.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no reason to update it, right?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So yeah,
exactly. But on the other hand, for example, and this is sort of my pet peeve, not pet peeve, but my concern is with version numbers. It's like there's a node which in our name is version 0.6.5. It's been downloaded a gazillion times. It's being used by everybody.
Yeah,
and I know it's okay. I know it's fine. I don't use it. But if someone comes in with perhaps not a whole lot of software development expertise and see that, I mean, they know that version 1.0. That's a good metric, right?
It's an interesting question, and I wonder if this is almost a wider than Node-RED, whether this is a Node ecosystem or even a general package ecosystem, an open source thing, where maybe as developers we are overly critical or we're being careful. Like you edge on the side of caution. I don't want to declare this as 1.0 because I'm kind of putting it out there and I'm saying, hey, look, this is the best I can do. If I did it with I published the Ngrok node, and for quite a long time I left that one at 0.7 and things, and actually it was a Christmas day a couple of years ago when I bumped it to 1.0, and I'm like, it's Christmas, we're going to 1.0 because it's like this is. I mean, Steve had also contributed some stuff to it at that point, and I think for me the thing that gave me the impetus to go, okay, I'm going to make this 1.0 was somebody else had come in and made quite a strong PR with a whole bunch of the UI they'd improved on it, and it's like, okay, now somebody else thinks this is kind of stuff done here, and that they think that this is good enough. So I think it's as a solo developer, you just have that real kind of feeling, and which leads on to the stuff about ratings, because again, that was what the other change that we made at the same time as the scorecard was moving to ratings. You used to have to be logged in via GitHub to the flows page to rate a node, which was done so that people couldn't game it and things. But very few people log in. The only people that log in via GitHub to that page is when you're trying to publish a node. If you're just consuming, you don't even need a GitHub account, let alone being logged in on that page. So we changed it to put it behind a cookie, and it makes it a little bit easier to game the votes if you want to. But I mean, that would show up. But equally, it's better to have. My feeling was it's better to have more ratings, even if there's a few junk ratings than no ratings in there. So
I mean, I think it's a good enough community that would be minimal, if any. What I would say, and I think I was looking at chat, I think something that could increase the ratings is because I don't know how many people actually go to the node page.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so rating. There's a couple of comments on here, and I was going to bring it up. And rating. It would be easier to rate nodes we've installed if the link from the palette page. So this is a first piece. Yes, there was a whole bunch of work that I had lined up after the scorecard, which other projects got in the way of. But the idea that the linking, because once you've installed a node, the link is gone currently in the palette manager to the flows page anyway. But actually bringing it one further and bringing it to rating from within Node-RED. So actually, you've got this installed. We know you're using it.
Right.
If I go into a palette manager, why if I can rate it from there? Because yeah, the time at which you want to rate it is once you've used it, but once you've got it installed and used it,
you hardly ever go back to the page of the node, right? I guess it
not
would
on that
reduce the
page.
friction. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Apple do that annoying thing, or app developers do that annoying thing, don't they? With rate this app on the App
Yes.
Store. I really don't think we want to go there, but
Yeah, but
rate my node. But
at least it will tickle your brain every time you open the Palette Manager and you see the nodes, and you see the chance of rating. Of course, I mean, this is easy to say. I mean, it's a lot of work to make that happen, but I think that would certainly help increase the number of votes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from people who've actually used it, and again, we can we can catch it. And Steve's commenting on here, which is really interesting because I think I know who might be getting some of this work to do, Steve. So be careful what you say, because you're just adding stuff to your to-do list at this stage. But yeah, and the point he made there about if you're uninstalling when you rate it, because 4 and 5 star ratings are great, but actually in some ways giving something a 1-star rating is equally valuable to the community, because if it doesn't work and you've uninstalled it, giving it that lower rating says I've tried this and it didn't work for me. And it feels harsh because we don't want to criticize open source developers and people have put their work into it and things. And absolutely, at the same time, I should say, go and raise an issue, tell people stuff doesn't work. It didn't work or whether it doesn't work for you because the way you're using it, people don't know. But yeah, I think the general thing here is, we want ratings in the editor, and it's nice to see actually that people have picked up on the work we've done, and I might even try and find some time to look at getting some of that.
But even showing the scorecard. I mean, any information that. Because I even perhaps this is all anecdotal and very personal, but I hardly ever go to the I go to the page most of the time when I want to publish a node, right, to the the flow page on the website.
Yeah.
But I usually search with the Palette Manager, not going to the flow.
Yeah,
right?
you search. Yeah, I did a mock-up of a modal that would bring up the scorecard, the flows page inside the editor in a popover window, so that it doesn't open it out to a new tab, but you can from the Palette Manager, you can search from there, and then you can just pop up the page that would show you the about page and the scorecard. And I think more integration between the flows site and the editor is something that will help there. Cool. I'll just say what the just skimming through the other comments. Be nice to have a view of the perfect scorecard packages, somebody said. So so I actually think, it'd be nice to people wanting to know how to score if you're building a node. There is a tool. It's part of the Node-RED admin tool. You can run the scorecard locally. So in development, you can run exactly the same code that we run on the scorecard. It's not a case of you submit your node and then you get your report. So all the details of what the thing is checking should be in little tooltips on a scorecard. But also, there's we're trying to be a very transparent process around the scorecard of this is what you need to do, to do it. It's not nothing to catch developers out. It's more to, these are best practices.
Right.
But again, and the tooling, and help is welcome with any of this tooling. Somebody said, once one node gets one bad vote, it will no longer be rated top using your sorting method. So I guess, if you've got all 5s, it'll always bring it down. But
by the way, the only reason I sorted by number of votes is because there's a ton of nodes that are 5-star rated. So
yes,
I had to limit it to top 10.
Top 10, absolutely. And I think it's in some ways, the top nodes is great, but actually just because a node is in the top nodes doesn't mean I'm going to use it, because you're going to search by functionality first.
Exactly.
And then the rating is that guide to that. So
also the interesting point is, like, when there's several nodes that do something similar, how do you choose between them, right? I mean, and so having some sort of handle, I mean, any criteria would be imperfect, right? But at least have something that you can grab on and say, okay, I'm going to try this one first and see if that
It's
works.
exactly when I've now got, I found there's a node. Okay, if there's a choice of multiple nodes, does this gives me an idea as to which one I'm going to try first? And do you go with the newest? Do you go with the, and and it's really this is what we're trying to solve, but we're not there yet, but we're definitely there. Your piece on examples as well, as Nick said this morning, the examples are the thing that are lacking. I put my hands up. Some of my nodes I didn't have examples in until I wrote the scorecard, and then thought I should better make sure my nodes score well.
I put my hand up too. Like until the scorecard, I never included examples in the node. But as I said, you usually have some sort of flow, right? Because you're developing the node, right?
You've got your test flows, exactly. And even but the other thing I was going to say is, this is actually a really good call out for people that want to contribute. If adding examples as a PR on a node,
that's a great idea.
Is something that's actually very easy. If you've used the node, you like the node, you had to figure it out because the examples weren't there. You've build the examples and submit a PR. It's not if you're not sure, reach out to somebody on the forum or on Slack or something and say, I want to add these PRs. Even if you just email the developer the flows file and say, hey, here's the examples. I built some examples for your node.
That's a great idea.
It's Hacktoberfest in the it's the season of pull requests that most developer evangelists fear every year. But that's a great way to contribute and to feedback is just to add some examples to a node that you like.
And the other thing that also that would speak to node quality, this just occurred to me. I should have mentioned this. That maybe it's relatively easy to do automatically is see if the node has any documentation. And again, it's like maybe if the file is there. I mean, again,
I think there was a test. I started writing a check to look at the README, and I think because you kind of have to have a README virtually to even publish something on GitHub or it guides you. But then we started.
I meant the flow,
the help text.
Yes, in the locales.
The help text, the HTML help text. That was another one there of checking it. That was just, I think, that was on the wish list. And it's probably the next thing we'd add in is trying to look at the docs and say, is there something written here? Trying to work out a sort of average amount of text. So it's not obviously if it's just one line, maybe a title. Not.
Again, this kind of automated things is hard to ascertain.
We did some work to look at the I can't remember which test it was, but there was one the number of dependencies. That was it, which is an interesting one because it's saying, well, if they've got a lot of dependencies, can be a red flag. But so actually, the value we set was based on the 90th percentile. So 90% of nodes have less than 6 dependencies. So anything with more than 6 we won't say that's bad, but we'll warn that, hey, this is a lot. It might be a node with a lot of things in there. So anyway, we should move on. So thank you, Pablo. I shall speak to you soon.
All right.
Cool.